In AD 79, Mount Vesuvius erupted above the Roman town of Pompeii. The city was not destroyed at once. For much of the first phase, escape may still have been possible. Leaving early offered the best chance, but it meant abandoning your home before anyone could know how much worse the eruption would become. Archaeologists have found the remains of more than 1,000 victims, but Pompeii may have held many thousands more. That gap fits a picture in which many people escaped, but it cannot tell us how many. So the question is not only why some people died, it is how long people had to leave, and why many would have found it difficult to act in time. Imagine that you are inside the walls as Vesuvius erupts. You can leave, shelter, or wait for better information. As conditions worsen, some of those choices will stop being available. People in Pompeii had no reliable way to know that Vesuvius was about to erupt. The Roman writer Strabo described the land around the mountain as fertile, but marked by ancient fire. His account shows that at least one educated Roman writer connected Vesuvius with ancient fire. But that was not a warning system. It could not tell residents that a particular tremor meant an eruption was about to begin. Then came a sign no one could ignore. A column rose above the mountain and spread at the top like a vast tree. That description comes from Pliny the Younger, who watched from across the bay. Inside Pompeii, people could see that something extraordinary was happening. They still could not know whether the plume would subside or whether conditions would become much worse. Pumice and ash fell across the city for roughly 18 to 20 hours, although the exact timing remains debated. That long fall of debris created an opportunity to leave, but conditions and routes varied. No one knew how long that would remain true. At first, the city had not yet been overwhelmed by deep pumice or destructive currents. But leaving was a major undertaking. It meant abandoning your home without knowing whether the road was safer than staying or whether the eruption might end in an hour. You might save your family. You might also return later and feel that you had panicked for nothing. Staying also made sense. Home offered shelter, food, water, and people who might be difficult to move. Outside, however, pumice was deepening in the streets. Walking was becoming harder, and visibility was getting worse. The longer the eruption continued, the less certain any safe choice became. Eventually, shelter itself became dangerous. By the following day, lapilli, small volcanic stones and larger fragments, had accumulated across Pompeii. As the debris grew deeper, its weight brought down roofs. Earthquakes during the eruption may also have brought down walls and buildings already under strain. Now think about what it meant to move a household. Children, older relatives, water, money, and perhaps an animal. If you stayed indoors, the roof shielded you from falling pumice, but could trap you if it failed. If you went outside, you escaped that risk, but faced falling debris and a route steadily disappearing beneath your feet. Most individual decisions were never recorded, but every option was becoming more dangerous. Then, late in the eruption, the evidence suggests that falling debris briefly eased. Geological layers at Pompeii preserve evidence of these pauses. After hours of falling stones and tremors, a lull may have seemed like a final chance to move. The pauses may help explain why many people who died late in the eruption were found in streets. That is an interpretation of the evidence, not a record of any individual's decision. But the lull did not mean the danger had passed. The eruption then entered a more dangerous phase. The column above Vesuvius could no longer support the material within it. As it collapsed, hot gas, ash, and rock swept outward along the ground. These pyroclastic density currents moved far faster than a person could run. Once the currents reached Pompeii, heat, ash, collapsing structures, and obscured routes made survival far less likely. By then, a usable route out might no longer have existed. The geology shows that escape was possible for many hours. But did people actually get out? Escapees left no equivalent of the body casts. To find them, historians have to look for names and other traces beyond Pompeii. Historian Stephen Tuck searched tens of thousands of Roman inscriptions. He reports evidence for more than 200 survivors in 12 cities, not a count of everyone who escaped, but the small number whose later lives can still be traced. One case makes that method concrete. At Ostia, the port of Rome, the Caltilius family founded a sanctuary and left a family tomb used for several generations. Tuck identifies them as survivors from the Vesuvian cities. Their monuments show a family building a new life after the disaster. Similar traces appear around the Bay of Naples and in other port towns. The record is incomplete, but it confirms that some people escaped and rebuilt their lives elsewhere. So, could you have escaped Pompeii? During the pumice-fall, yes, many people apparently did. To give yourself the best chance, you needed to leave before pumice deepened, roofs failed, and the most dangerous phase began. The hard part was not running fast. It was deciding early, while the outcome was still uncertain. There was no single perfect moment. The route ahead, falling pumice, who needed help, and the safety of home all mattered. Population and survival estimates remain uncertain. The evidence supports a changing window, open enough for substantial escape during the pumice fall, narrowing as the city became harder to cross, and effectively closed in the path of the destructive currents. That does not make everyone who stayed foolish or careless. We can see the whole disaster in hindsight. The people of Pompeii could only see the confusing and extraordinary events unfolding around them. For many families, the decision must have been agonizing, and by the time leaving looked unquestionably necessary, it may already have been too late.